Hello divas, dudes, and dolls, I'm Caricatura, and welcome back to my magical, mysterious, and mystical little review show, Very Slay, where we go over each and every floor show look from the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 6. This week we saw the return of the D&D challenge, which as a D&D player myself, I'm always really excited to see make a return appearance on the show. I honestly prefer it to the Monsters of Rock challenge, just because I'm more of a fantasy girly. And what I really particularly appreciated about this season's iteration of the challenge, one, there was no really poorly scripted acting challenge, and two, they didn't get like the pretty D&D classes, they got more like monstery ones. There was a tiefling, we got some trolls, we got some goblins, we got some orcs. There was a good mix of stuff. But as always, when we go over these looks, if I thought it was a passable 10, if it meets, it beats, we give it an okay. If I thought it was a lovely little natural 20, we give it a slay. And if I thought it was a natural 1, we give it a nay. That's all in efforts to find my weekly slay of the day, my favorite look of the entire episode. Whichever look takes that top spot today, we'll be going head to head against anti-heroine's monochromatic monster look from last episode to battle it out for the top spot of slay of the season. We are only a few episodes out from crowning that new winner, and when we do, we will be deciding definitively which look takes that top spot for the season. And whichever look does end up holding out that top spot at the end, we'll be getting a lovely little illustration made by me. Sneak peeks can be found over on my Patreon, as well as a little exclusive bonus video for the unaired looks that we didn't get to see from the monsters who were eliminated earlier on throughout the competition. At least the ones they post anyway. But with all of that out of the way, let's switch on over and dive on into the looks. Alrighty, first up this week. Now normally we go alphabetically, but because this was in pairs, I feel like it's appropriate we do them in those pairings. So we're gonna start off with Gray Matter, who was a little goblin warrior, I think. I thought this was fantastic. I loved that Gray's signature brain exposed headpiece that's in all of his characters was still there. It was a little more hidden this time because of this wonderfully detailed skull. I thought this was such a fun and like really chaotic design, but in the best way. It felt really lived in, it felt really authentic and delivered, breathable. And when I think of like a goblin warrior that you would find in like a monster book for 5e, like an official one from Wizards of the Coast, this is what I would picture for that. He really did great in that regard, but it's also giving me a little bit of Goblin Slayer goblin in the face here, which I'm very fine with. I thought this was absolutely phenomenal, and this was a very well-deserved win for Gray again this week. It's a slay. Gray's partner in this bout was anti-heroine, who was giving us a troll druid. Now, what I loved about this look, normally the lighting really fucks up the detailing and the overall presentation of their looks, but Auntie's I think really worked well in it because of the blue lighting really allowed the makeup to pop even more than it already does. But on the stage, Jesus fucking Christ, this makeup, Auntie's paint, I think she has arguably one of the best mugs in terms of technical application of makeup and blending across any season of the show. It is just like next level god tier phenomenal. It's so clean every single time. I absolutely adore it. Like she looks like a painting. It's phenomenal. I love the hair. It's very troll. It's kind of giving me like Yassified Trundle from League of Legends, this color palette with the skin and the hair, which I'm very okay with. My favorite part of this whole look though was the staff. This weapon with the spider web detailing was so intricately put together and so gorgeous, and it was like such a beautiful detail choice. I adored it top to bottom. Of the looks, she is more in line with like my personal aesthetic. It's still D&D, but it's a little like, you know? So I thought it was fantastic. It's a slay. The only thing I wish that there would have been different was that maybe she would have had like more of a troll nose prosthetic, but I thought that the piercings in the ears and everything, it felt very anti-heroine if she was in the universe of D&D. One-to-one translation. Phenomenal job. Again, slay. Well-deserved win with Gray this week. I'm not mad at the double win. Then up next we have Asia Consent, who at first I was so excited when they said she was going to be a Tiefling Beastmaster, because I thought of the 6 assignments, this would have been the most fun, even though Beastmaster is a subclass, but I was excited for the idea of Asia as a Tiefling. I think that's like a perfect mix. What wasn't a perfect mix was the fact that her makeup, I think, was actually benefited by the kind of bad outdoor lighting. It was made worse by the stage lighting because it really drew attention to the fact that there was colors in the bodysuit that were not reflected up into the face, so there was a bit of a disconnect there. I thought the bone corset was cool. The horns looked really cool. They were giving me somewhere between Tiefling and Kunari, so I was a fan of that. Of all of Asia's looks this season, I think this is the simplest of them all, and I think it's the weakest because of it, because it lacks lacks a lot of those Asia over-the-top detail signatures that we've come to really know her for over the course of the season. I mean, let's not mention the fact that the girl can't shoot a bow for shit. So I think she was very deserving of being in the bottom this week. This look for me is going to be an A. It was just a miss. Up next we have Yuri, who is supposed to be an orc warlock, but this wasn't giving me orc. I think the thing that would have brought it to that territory more was more definition with the teeth, maybe a jaw prosthetic or something. I would have really taken that all the way there, because it is giving a little more goblin. Honestly, if anything, she's giving me Auntie Ethel in her early days. This is a very reference-y heavy episode. Gamer girlies out there, you'll know. There's just something about it that isn't quite there. I think the fabric choices were a bit of a miss. I thought the armor was cool. The glowing details were really smart, really well done, really effective too in the fight scene. I liked that they incorporated her like teleporting because she's a magic user, so she wouldn't really have necessarily like physical power besides like beating someone upside the head with a staff, which is never a good idea as a mage, especially as a warlock. Like, you're Eldritch Blast and shit. So, I don't know, having a fight scene where characters had to be potentially mages, where they couldn't, like, physically fight with a weapon necessarily, they could maybe defend with it. It just felt a little strange in terms of, like, scaling the weight of the competition in a fair way. But this look for me didn't totally hit the mark. I think the weapons were great. Normally I would give Yuri an A because the race was just not there. Like, she was not an orc, straight up not an orc. The weapon design was so good that I think I'm gonna give it just an okay. And then we have our final pair. We have Pi, who was an orc warrior, and this, in my opinion, is Pi's best look of the season. I thought this was phenomenal. The axe was great. The armor was incredibly detailed and well put together. The prosthetics were stunning. I loved that this is a similar kind of bodysuit treatment that we saw with the ghost look, with the kind of the muscly, veiny skin print, but it was carried up through into the makeup. And it was this level of definition that really allowed it to read great in that outdoor lighting setup. So I thought it was really effective, really, really smart work. And I was kind of thinking that Pi was going to win this challenge, even though I was very, very happy that the other two did and Pi did not. I'm gonna give Pi a slay this week, and I'm hoping that maybe this is gonna be the start of me like really, really loving what Pi does in the competition. Because in all honesty, most of the stuff I haven't been super blown away by. Then finally, we have our next dearly departed Jaharia in her Goblin Druid, I think, outfit here. Druid or Warlock, one of the two. She was the magic-y class. The sequins were a weird choice on this fabric. The second she pulled out that stretch sequin, it was like, oh, she's done. She's done. And it was even more jarring when you saw her next to Pi, because her makeup just did not have the definition that Pi's did, or really anyone else's. Her makeup read so flat and so muddy outside, and it just was a huge miss for me. And there was just not enough there. I thought of the 6 outfits, this was the simplest. It was the least in terms, or it was the least like fully fleshed out in terms of a character and detailing. So I just thought it was like really bland, and I think of the 6, she was clearly the weakest tonight. I do think it was the right decision for her to be the one exterminated. I will say though, we will be talking about this over on the Patreon, so be sure to join as a free member if you want to get in the episode discussion post for this week, because I think something is afoot with this extermination challenge, because the credit scene was not the normal credit scene, and it kind of threw me a little bit. It does really feel like they're trying to set up a sort of individual storyline that runs the course of the season with all of the deaths, because of them all being set around movies and the studio and the set and filmmaking and Hollywood and all of that. Like, that's kind of the general theme of the season, cinema. So I'm curious to see how that's all gonna play out. Also, the prosthetic works on Swan kind of gagged me a little bit. I wasn't expecting that, but we saw good prosthetic work on them last week, and of course, I'm sure we're probably going to see more of it from Sig Neutron again. I'm sure it's probably his work this week too. I'm curious to see where this is going to go. But going back to Jahari's look, this is going to be an A. And it's now time to pick my Slay of the Day, my favorite look of the episode, which I think is very clearly going to have to go to both Grey Matter and Anti-Heroine this week, and I genuinely think it would be so fun to draw both of these looks together in a fight scene piece. Very active and combat-y, but I don't want to do detailed weaponry and armor. So I'm going to be keeping Anti-Heroine's monochromatic monster look as my slay of the season, but Ho ho, did they give me a good idea there? And I'm very tickled at the prospect of maybe one day going back and tackling it. We'll have to see. There's lots of things I want to make, and there's only so much time in the world. But if people want to pay me to do it, I'll do it. As always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all those lovely little things. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and we are getting ever closer to hit the 4,000 watch hours we need to hit the next Magic for YouTube partner. And we're at that point now. We're at the point now where the Dragula content I was out last year is starting to fall off. So the sooner we can get that number up, the better, because I'm getting nervous that we're going to be hitting points where the more popular videos are going to fall off, and I'm going to be taking like hundreds of hours in setbacks, and I don't want that. So please do watch the videos in full. I have playlists for like 15 or 16 different Drag Race seasons and Drag TV seasons as a whole, and I would appreciate just honestly even just setting them up in the background and letting those suckers run, because it all counts towards the watch time. Again, we will see you next week for episode 8 of the Boulet Brothers Dragula season 6. And until next time, be sure to go out there, y'all. Stay kind, stay queer, and make sure that your day is very slay.